This is a street in New York's Chinatown. On the surface, nothing really stands out. But what if I told you that the building above this small noodle shop is allegedly a secret Chinese police station? Well, it's true. In fact, this is a photo of it from the inside. Now, this isn't something that only America is dealing with, but rather much of the world. This is a photo of a station in Dublin, and this is from the inside of one in Barcelona. And here's even one in Budapest. In total, there's 54 of them located within these 30 countries, that we know of course. And they've been operating since as far back as 2014. So how does any of this even work? Why are Chinese nationals being policed by China when they're living far away in foreign lands? And why hasn't any country put a stop to it? Well, the thing about these secret police stations is that many governments knew of their existence, just not as police stations. You see, China has what is called overseas service stations. Originally, they were created as a means to perform administrative tasks for Chinese citizens and tourists abroad, such as the renewal of Chinese driver's licenses or help with settling into their new country. Now, none of these things were particularly controversial, and as a result, these stations were often left alone. But that was until September 2022, when Spain-based human rights group Safeguard Defenders released a bombshell report on what these stations abroad are truly meant for. Their real purpose is to tackle transnational crime, like telecommunications fraud. But I say the word crime loosely, and you'll see why in a bit. Transnational crime is something every country deals with. For example, if you commit a crime in Germany before fleeing to Belgium, then the German government has an obvious interest in asking the Belgians to apprehend you before hauling you back to Germany. Sometimes, however, a country will claim the right to try its own citizens for crimes they commit while they are overseas, though this is typically reserved for more serious crimes. The UK, for instance, will prosecute a British citizen for murder regardless of where in the world the killing took place. All of this is fairly well established, governed by bilateral treaties and extradition processes that are agreed between countries. China knows this. They don't have some SWAT teams arresting whoever they want off the street in France, for instance. But that doesn't mean they're following the rules. Adhering to official policy is difficult when a suspect's gone into an unfriendly country. And unfortunately for China, it has few allies in the West it can count on for streamlined cooperation. So, in turn, they operate secretly. Governments such as Ireland or the Netherlands had no clue Chinese service stations were possibly operating in their territories at all, let alone secret police. And that's because Chinese restaurants and convenience stores were also used as a front for these secret police stations, such as the accused Lun Fang in Glasgow, or this real estate office in London, allegedly. Now that the truth is finally emerging though, stations are being shut down. But that's not even the worst part. You see, China claims to have a huge problem with online crime. So much so that they boasted of having to arrest 634,000 suspects of it just last year, and effectively banned its citizens from residing in these 9 foreign countries, which it claims are hotspots for it. But if this is the case, then why do they have these stations in countries like Ecuador, Portugal, and Nigeria? Well, the truth is that while these stations definitely do take care of some real crime and assist their citizens abroad, they have a much darker purpose as well. They're part of a complex global web of surveillance and control, allowing the Communist Party to reach far beyond China's borders. See, the stations are affiliated with and run by local governments in China, which have large numbers of Chinese nationals living abroad. They're known as hometown associations. For example, the southeastern city of Fuzhou, which has an estimated 3 million residents living overseas, has police overseas service stations in Prato, Italy, and Barcelona, Spain. The hometown associations are connected to the hierarchy of the CCP's United Front Work Department, which runs outreach and influence operations both in China and overseas. One of their key operations is known as the Persuasion to Return campaign, aimed at coercing those speaking out against Beijing's regime overseas to return home. And when I say coercing, I mean to a pretty extreme level as well. It involves approaching a target online or through undercover agents abroad to threaten and harass the suspect into returning voluntarily. They even go so far as to threaten to imprison the target's family and deny children of the suspect still in China the right to education. This is an example of one of their tactics. Here are members of the Qingshan Overseas Chinese Service Center in Madrid trying to persuade a suspect to return to China. And this person you see here is one of his family members, summoned by authorities to join the video meeting and push him to come home. The name tag even says family representative. It's all a pretty systematic scheme. Take for instance the case of Wang Jingyu. He's a Chinese dissident who's wanted for supporting the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong and making online comments about the China-India border skirmish in 2020. He's been granted asylum in the Netherlands, yet is under the constant pressure of these secret police stations. When he arrived in Rotterdam, he began receiving calls from the secret police station there asking him to go back to China to solve his problems, adding that he should also consider his family. This is a photo he captured of one of the many people stalking him, wearing a People's Liberation Army shirt. He's been assaulted, threatened with knives, had his family imprisoned, and even had to deal with anonymous allegations made against him to the Dutch police that he was in possession of bombs and weapons and will commit acts of terrorism. It's gotten so bad that even the Dutch police advised Wang Jingyu to hide in jail, as that'd be the only place the CCP wouldn't be able to get to him. Everywhere he goes, he's stalked, whether that be to a different country or secretive safe house. Nothing has worked. In the end though, Wang has resisted going back to mainland China. Sadly, others couldn't hold out as long though. In 2021 alone, Chinese authorities claimed that 230,000 Chinese nationals had been successfully persuaded to return to China to face criminal proceedings for their actions. Now, while many countries have begun launching their own investigations into this and closing down these stations, China has of course denied any wrongdoings, saying the report is filled with speculation and lies, and that they abide by international rules. So how much of this is true? Well, it's pretty hard to deny, because these stations literally refer to themselves as an overseas police service station. Even more so, the Nantong Police Department, which has offices in Myanmar, Cambodia, and Zambia, began referring to the project as 110 Overseas. 110 being the Chinese emergency telephone number for the police, which just reveals its intentions further. Besides, if the Chinese government is innocent here, why didn't they reach out to these countries' local law enforcement, or rather seek permission to operate before starting these secret police stations? Well, since the project has always been shrouded in secrecy, the full picture might be difficult to grasp. The Chinese government is keen to portray these overseas service stations as little more than administrative bureaus and community centers. Some of the 54 stations listed may actually have nothing to do with China, for example, the one in New York. And by the way, I just have to give them credit quickly, because potentially opening up one in America, especially in a place like New York City, takes a lot of nerve. Anyways, the one in New York is owned by a non-profit organization, America Changle Association. It was incorporated in 2013 and listed its charitable mission as a social gathering place for Fujianese people. This means that it precedes the beginning of the 110 Overseas project. So maybe it really is harmless, or that's exactly what they want you to think. After all, if you're running a secret police force, you're not going to be shouting about it from the rooftops. The nonprofit is also blacklisted by the IRS for its failure to submit tax filings for 3 years, and was amazingly able to afford a $1.3 million payment for their office suite. This is what I'm talking about. It seems likely that they are secret police stations, but the full picture has not been uncovered, so we can't know for certain, at least not as of right now. Nevertheless, China and Chinese corporations are no strangers to attracting controversy for their overseas operations, with telecoms provider Huawei having been banned or blacklisted in many Western countries due to allegations of surveillance, spying, and espionage. So what might come from this, and what will be the repercussions of it? I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Thank you for watching.